Hi class, it's Miss Miller here, and this week I want to talk to you about how you can actually strengthen your argument. And the best way to do that is by identifying the counter arguments in your very own claim. And that literally means to turn your back on your claim, to actually challenge it, test what it is that you... One of the first things you want to do is identify who specifically will disagree with your own claim. Who will disagree? And then you also want to decide why will they disagree. These ideas or questions will help you to formulate your counter arguments. Once you've identified those counter arguments or those plausible counter arguments in your own claim, you want to anticipate it prior to the other person mentioning it, then you want to evaluate it. Is it a strong counterclaim? Is it a weak one? Is it true? Is it false? You really want to take time to develop your approach to your counter argument. Now, selecting your counter argument is just as important as developing your approach. One of the first things you want to do is be objective. Put yourself in the other person's shoe. What would they say? And you really want to be so objective that if someone walked in a room and they heard a portion of your speech, they wouldn't know what side you were on. That's how objective you want to be. You want it to be unbiased. The second part of your approach to the counter argument is you want to be as thorough as possible. You don't want to spend no time on developing your counter argument. You want to be thorough. You want to do it due diligence, meaning you want to think about the counter claim, the counter reason, the counter evidence, the counter warrant. You want to spend some time, some quality time on developing your counter argument. You also have to be fair. Whatever you do to one side of the argument, you need to do to the other side of the argument. So where do you put this counter argument? You can put it anywhere except your conclusion. In fact, this is your rebuttal. You can put it in your introduction, in the introductory part of your debate, or in your essay, or you can put it afterwards, but you just don't want to put it in your conclusion. Now, you also need to be able to evaluate the quality of your argument. And that really means, is it a good argument? Okay? You want it to be, one, it needs to be reasonable. Is it logical? Can your audience follow your progression of thoughts? And two, you want it possibly to be popular. Whether or not it's credible or not doesn't matter. If everybody's thinking it, then your audience members might say, hey, he read my mind. So you really want to select something that's both reasonable, logical, and a popular counter argument that most of your audience members are already thinking. That's a great way to go. Consider using some sarcasm to sort of expose your opponent's weaknesses. Now, at this age, it's a little bit difficult to talk about sarcasm in terms of how you would address it in your own counter-argument. So for the sake of time, what I'm going to do is provide you with the sarcasm in the form of a political cartoon or an image. Now, what you have to do with that image is you need to break it down. And there's a formula for doing this, and it's called optic, when you have an image that you evaluate. So essentially what I'm saying is the sarcasm that you'll use in your counter-argument will come from political cartoons that I'll pull from you on the topic. And when I give you those, you need to evaluate that and present it as a source in your work or your counter-argument. So the first thing you want to do when you look at this visual, because in the past I've given you visuals and I said, tell me what you think about it. And you sit there and you ponder for a while, and it's sometimes a bit of a challenge. So I want to provide you with a strategy for approaching this. The first thing I need you to do is look at it overall and give me your overview. Write down any details or thoughts that you have about what it is that you see explicitly in this image. Then what I need you to be able to do is break it up into parts. Take different sections of the image and break it up. And that's analyzing, when you take things apart. And do the same thing that you did with the overview, but do it in parts. The third item that I need you to do when you see a visual is to address the title. Does the title, if it's presented, provide you with any clues about what the image might be about? See if there's any help with the title. And then you have I for interrelationship. And essentially what you do there is you take your title plus your parts and you come up to see if there are any relationships between the two. the title or the relationships between the parts of the image. Okay, and we won't really be able to understand this concept until we do it. And so I'll make sure I give you a political cartoon to access, and they'll give you a chance to add a little bit of sarcasm to your counter argument. And then after you've done the interrelationship, then you look at the conclusion. You draw your own conclusion after you've looked at an overview, you've broken it up into parts, you address the title, you look for relationships between or interrelationships between the different parts and the title. And then what you do is you draw a conclusion. In about 1 to 2 sentences, you should be able to summarize what you've seen. Once you've turned your back on your own claim and you've addressed some of the counter arguments, then you want to face it. You want to take it head on. And this is where you want to have a very strong response and overcome it. This is the time to reaffirm your claim. So you've addressed the weaknesses, you're acknowledging it, now you have to respond with something very strong for your audience.